Hey guys, it's Nate, and it's time for another bite sized. And this time I thought I would bring on a friend of the show, patron, and just all around, just the incredible, well, he's the incredibly inedible trash turkey, but he's also my friend and my pal. So, and yeah. So, yeah, turkey,
Thanks for
you're,
having me, Nate.
dude, thanks for this is kind of like a little last minute but you and I the other day I was bored and I just jumped into general voice chat and you jumped in there with me at one point in time and another community member, Eric, aka E Rice. And we were sort of just talking about a lot of stuff, but then you and I kind of got on to everybody's favorite topic these days, which is Sony's decision to uh well basically it I don't know. There's so many like negative ways to do this, and actually, I think you and I kind of touched on it too. Is like, it's just like I know that I talked with this a little bit about with Spike when he was in there, and but it's like I'm just so discouraged by like just the negative um tilt of just all of the news cycle lately. So I'm trying to like not be so negative, and
What stage of grief are you in, Nate? Let's
dude,
start there.
I'm just in distress, man. I am in distress, brother. Like it's one of those things where so Sony has made the decision to go, starting in January of 2028, they're going to cease production of discs. And I think there is some language where like there's certain things that they're going to continue manufacturing that are have already been in production. And they're going to honor agreements and all that other stuff, but they're what this is, it's an indicator that the PlayStation 6 generation is not going to have a physical media reader,
Right.
and that they're basically signaling, and because that's the thing, it's like they're not actually talking about the PS6 yet, like they haven't actually confirmed it yet.
Right.
They're just saying in 2028, starting January 2028, we're not doing physical, we're not printing any new physical discs, kind of thing, and
Right.
everybody knows in a lot of ways that that is sort of a sign that yes, the PlayStation 6 probably going forward, there will not be natively physical PlayStation 6 discs. And there's a lot of stuff where like I've read some people, like some people have said like, well, maybe it's like depending on the file size of some of these, they might not, it might be the whole thing where it's like, it's too big for the Blu-ray format, because there is a cap there. And we do have
Right.
some games.
But how many games? So what? You've got different sizes of Blu-rays. You've got one that goes up to
Mhm.
100 gigs. So even something like GTA 6 supposedly could fit on 2 discs because it's like 160, something like that.
Mhm.
So you're talking 2 discs. We've done 2 discs ever since like Xbox 360 era. I don't know the breakdown of the cost of a disc, but I would say it's probably less than a game key card, and Nintendo's still doing that.
But
So even I see what you're saying, and also let me put this out there. I'm not advising anybody to invest in this company. I can't even remember what it is, but there's been news about a company that's working on a 1 terabyte disk for like centers. So like to help with cost of storage. So like we will get to a point if they want to where discs could be as big as they want. You can't tell me that GTA 7 is going to be over 1 terabyte, but whatever it would be, whatever game. But
and I
I'm just
mean,
saying.
like even sort of bringing up Nintendo though, like they're essentially just using like flash memory. They're just using flash memory essentially
Correct.
for their discs. So it's like, and that stuff, you can have 2 terabyte flash memory cards. So like, yeah, maybe you're limited by like the disc size. And honestly, a lot of games on current gen hardware, like the PS5 and the series consoles, like the games are even from the disk, they're installed on your hard drive. And then in a
Absolutely.
lot of ways so the disk actually just acts like a key.
Now,
And
now, now there are a lot of games though that when they write to the hard drive, that it's writing to the hard drive of the data that's on the disk, meaning the data is there, it writes to the hard drive so that it can access it the speeds that it needs, right? So like
Mm-hmm.
meaning the data is on the disk, you're not having to download more data. That data is just then transferred to your hard drive so the system can access it fast
Yeah.
enough to play the game. So it's not a key. Some of them might be. I think, Indiana Jones, some of those high, profile ones that were like essentially a game key. I think a lot of Xbox started doing that, and that's
Mm-hmm.
bogus. I would say they don't have every game, but doesitplay.org is a great website that tells you they try to play a game on the physical media, and they tell you like they give you like a red, a yellow, or a green as far as like what patches are needed. Can you play the whole thing off of the medium, whatever it is, and kind of the state of it, when it's released. So you're right. They have been starting to make it where maybe not all the data is there, but a lot of them are. I think I heard, I can't remember who it was, but said about 70 plus percent, around 70% of games on PS5 were complete, or at least um, I would say a functional build of the game is available. Also, by the way, when you say, and this is what happened to Nate, when he said physical media 3 times, I do appear. So that's why I'm here, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
I summoned you.
That's all I wanted to say.
Because you are sort of one of on the Discord, you are one of the more I'm not going to say outspoken, but like you're one of the more vocal physical media defenders. And I think some of that is just like when you and I were talking is like you gave yourself some sort of disparaging label, but I would call you more of a retro oriented gamer. I think like you like the older stuff as a general rule, and you do sort of tend to that. And like I think it's important to just sort of state too. It's like I'm not a fan of Sony moving away from physical media. In fact, I think in some ways it is inevitable. I thought it was probably going to be next gen. I do think like the decision is a little preemptive. And we've at this point in time we've all seen like a plurality of videos talking about like the numbers and the breakdowns and what does this all mean. But it's the vast majority of their business is conducted through digital storefronts. Like it's like there's one sheet where they show it's like 95% of their income from Sony or from PlayStation comes from digital transactions. Now that includes DLC, that includes battle passes, that includes like all the microtransaction stuff. That's like, and there's a whole 51%. Pile of games that are only available digitally. Like, so a lot of independent stuff, even like right now, like Hades 2 and not Hollow Knight, Silksong, both released as digital first. And I think there are physical versions of those games coming.
Yes, I believe so. Yeah, and I agree with you. I guess, and I don't expect a company to say, because they have a marketing department and they have people that they have to, shareholders that they have to make happy and make money. I get that. As far as the 5%, I mean, it just seems a little disingenuous the way in which they're kind of, if you were to tell someone like, oh, only 5% of our games are purchased physically, you would think, oh, well, man, so like 95% of games are purchased digitally. Well, no, it's not. It's like you said, it's more of a revenue thing. So they're just, it's not apples to apples. And so I think that with that moving forward, I mean, a company's not going to be like, hey, we really want to do this where we maximize our profit at your expense. So what we're going to do is we're just going to uh, kind of, I'm not saying cook the books, but change the statistics in a way that kind of, in a simple, if you just say that, it kind of makes someone think, well, I guess it's inevitable and it's just going to be like this. Whereas in Sony, when you look at the split between their first party single player games, are more either 50-50 or actually, I think, oh goodness, I can't remember what game
The
it was.
Insomniac leak data. That's what you're
Yeah,
talking
yeah,
about. Yeah.
yeah. So like all that was either 50-50 or maybe even more percentage being sold physically. So like the actual game. So I think a lot of that revenue that you're talking about, it's just digital revenue from battle passes, horse armor and like and other games that are the and I can't remember what is the term, Nate, you talked about it with Destiny, the
Games as a
games as
service.
service. So it's
Mhm.
like the games as a service games that they want to say, that's where their business is. And if we could just get rid of these old people that like physical games, maybe or they'll kind of succumb. I think that's kind of, we're just going to move them along. And I'm wrong on that. Maybe not, but I
Well,
think that they've
I think
really
part of it
messed up
too.
here.
I think part of it. I definitely think it's a mistake because they're getting a lot of bad press. Now, I do think that some of the bad press, and I'm going to say something that maybe some people watching or listening to this would be offended at. I think that the hardcore, the people who are sort of super online and super active in these discussions in online spaces are actually a very vocal minority. I actually think that the general consumer is not aware and doesn't really care. I think that's one of those things where there are a lot of like, because I've been watching the online discourse in sort of Twitter and the online spaces, and it's like every time Sony posts something, like they just get bodied in the comments.
Right.
And I think like there's it's one of those things. Again, I think this is a mistake. I think it's preemptive, but sort of looking at the numbers too, and it's the other number that's come up again is that the games side of that, when you break down the physical versus digital sales of just gaming, it is more of an 80-20 split currently, like this year. So that Insomniac leak, that was a few years old at that point in time.
Right.
And the market has been trending aggressively towards digital. Again, I'm just going to come out and say, like, I really thought that this next gen would probably be the last gen for digital or
Right.
for physical. And they would just sort of like let this thing really tail off naturally. And honestly, I what I was kind of hoping is like, and what I've heard other people talk about, and is that like, because part of it is that printing physical discs costs them more money and they make less on those. That's the reality of it. They it's not that it costs tons of money to print a disc and a case and all the other things, but by the time they sell that to retailers and all the different hands that take a piece of that,
Right.
they're getting, you know, I don't know, like,
So what kind of level of like, what if people just don't buy it? I mean, I guess we are I guess you could say the vocal minority. And I do agree with you. I
mhm,
think people are going to go to the store and they're going to see a box and it's going to be a code in the box. And they're going to be like, oh, great. Here's my game. It's a code in a box or whatever. And they might not think of it because I heard one person say this and I thought it was a good example of this is like, there's people that are like sneaker heads and they like love sneakers and they like get into
mhm.
collecting and knowing all the colorways and variants and this stuff. I don't care. I've bought shoes at Goodwill because they're cheap and I'll like wear them out. You know what I mean? Like I don't care. So like there's people that are just going to be like, cool, I got my latest Call of Duty and it's a code in the box. I don't care. It's a consumable thing and I don't care anymore. Like it's just a thing and it's not, dare I say, art, Nate. It's not some kind of thing to hold on to. It's just a game, Nate. Come on.
Well, okay. And so I think there's actually like this is kind of what I'm hopeful for. And that I have no reason to think that this is a possibility other than I just want it to be.
Right.
Is that I think that similar to how music went predominantly digital and how we're seeing a resurgence in vinyls, I think that there could be a market for okay. And so there's a part of me that thinks, and this is some again, pie in the sky speculation. But I really wonder if at some point in time Sony, because one of the big things is people are concerned about their libraries going forward and how are they going
Right.
to engage with their physical discs that they already own. I
Right.
think Sony will release some sort of physical media reader so that people can access their PS4 and PS5 games that they have discs for on their PS6. I
Right.
think they will. I think that'll make a lot of people angry because it'll feel like a slap in the face. But I think that's a bit of a conciliatory move. And I think that honestly, if they see value in a market in sort of releasing boutique versions of these physical games, so we have things like Limited Run, we have things like, I don't know, Limited Run is the big one, but there are
Yeah. I mean,
smaller outfits that publish this stuff. Now, part of the problem though is that all of this stuff gets published like through Sony
through
and
Sony.
through their
Yeah.
plants. So maybe Sony will see some value in sort of opening up some of this stuff for boutique markets because they're not going to completely not print Blu-rays ever again. It's just that the primary facility in Germany or Austria is going down. Like
Right.
I think they have other facilities. Again,
Right.
I'm not an expert on Sony's holdings
Right.
or anything like that.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things that I think there's a possibility that if they see that there's a market for more of the, again, like the physical sort of thing where they could come back and do like boutique limited run releases and allow sort of maybe smaller publishers to do that stuff. But I think that I think there's a couple things here. And one of the things you and I talked about is that I think what Sony's also trying to do here, and maybe people don't see it this way. I don't I don't think it's all evil corporation trying to like screw the customer. I think some of it is like Sony is trying to keep costs down to themselves and they're trying to sort of say like they're trying to sort of maximize profit without, you know, raising prices
Right.
on games again. And
Right.
so what they're saying is like, hey, a way that we can do this is we can keep the price of the new console lower without
Mm-hmm.
subsidizing that by not putting a physical drive in there. And then that will put people into essentially a closed garden sort of economy where
Right.
we will be able to, on first party stuff, we'll be able to recapture 100% of that revenue. And then on, you know, third party, second party, whatever, like that, whatever the split is, I think they
Right.
get like a 30% rip on that. And
I,
so and it's because I think that's like, and I know like I don't want to sound like a shill for Sony, but the reality is like the market is just not good. It's just not good. It's not good for consumers. It's not good for electronics. And the way that is like they've been planning this thing for years. And if they sort of from what I understand, and I've been listening to some coverage of this, if they walk away from like the RAM suppliers and this stuff at this point in time and say, we're just going to call it out, it could be years, like years before like they get sort of back in place. And I think the other thing to sort of keep in mind is like they're not in the same position that Valve is in. So it's not like, you know, people see the pricing of the Steam box and they're like, oh, that's $1,000. That's $1,200. So, you know, however much for the
right.
Valve. Like Valve is not like a well-regarded manufacturer. They don't have a history sort of providing, and they don't have the economy of scale and the contracts and the long-term relationships that Sony does with these suppliers. And they're not even in the same situation as Xbox, who, you know, like
Right.
just has really kind of, you know, crap the bed in
Right.
as far as like supply and all those things. So I do think it's that it's like it's not all, like I said, it's not all evil corporation trying to sort of like black hat us, right? I think there is somewhere they are trying to be a little more economically mindful. And this is a way that they can sort of, one, they can push people into arena where they are able to extract, more profit for less overhead. But I think the other thing too is like they are trying to keep costs down because like I don't know. It's
I guess they are, and I could see, but I guess, and maybe just maybe I'm going to answer my own question here, but what makes that PS6 different than just a PC at that point, and what gives them anything that gives you a reason? Because I think that this kind of debacle, maybe I'm wrong here, and maybe it's just YouTube going crazy, getting clicks on, people getting mad about people's physical media going away, But
I'm
like,
not, like, and
where would
again,
you I'm gonna
state
would you
this
put
like
this as far as
I'm
like,
not happy that they're doing this.
I know you're not happy, because honestly, what it does is it doesn't give you a choice to go get that physical game that's 5 years old for $20 now,
Mm-hmm.
where you're going to be spending $69.99 on the PlayStation Store if you want it, unless it's on sale
Mm-hmm.
that day. You're going to be locked in to their ecosystem, and I just don't see that being like a big enough draw to people. I think that maybe they'll make more money per sale, but will they lose that generation? Because I think this is like, I mean, you went from legit taking, I mean, the reason I bought a PS4 were two reasons. A, because I liked indie games and I liked their support of those. I liked
Mm-hmm.
that those were coming out and I could maybe get those. At that time, I wasn't really that concerned about getting those physically, but I just thought that was really cool. The second reason was this is how you share a game video.
Mm-hmm.
And that right there just put the boot on the Xbox One, their neck, and they never recovered.
Yeah.
They never, not in this generation, not in that generation, not in this generation. And I really feel like Sony, with this being the first to just pretty much signal it, say we're not going further with physical media. And guess what? Like, to your point, we're not going to lay out we're not going to like think that this is a big enough deal that we're going to have some talking points or discuss this is how we're going to move forward with your physical media. This is, the things that we know that you'll be concerned about. And this is, proactively, we're going to talk about this. We just drop it and we just realize, oh, is that a big deal to people? I mean, I'm sure that at some level, somebody knew that, but on the upper echelon of Sony, I don't think that they knew that was that big of a deal. What do you think about it? Yeah.
Well, let's go back. You were saying it's like, what is going to differentiate the PS6 from PC? I think there's the thing that has always, like, because let's just be honest, consoles are essentially just very specific PCs.
Right.
They're running custom OSs, but the fact is like that the console is plug and play.
It is.
Plug it in. You put you used to put your disc in. You might need to do some updates, but like you could just pretty much play it out of the box, and you didn't have to worry about playing with settings on any cards or any of that stuff. So I think that will always be a side of like the console experience where it's going to be a lot. It's because it's going to have fixed hardware parameters. Like you're not going to have the messiness that comes along with PC. PC has higher highs. It runs things, the high end rigs. 1 second. Yeah. I just coughed right into the microphone. I was going to mute that. And then anyways, so PC always, but that sort of, again, you have the higher highs, but like there's a lot of troubleshooting. There's a lot of, you have to check your settings and all the other things. Like there's a lot of tweaking that you have to do behind the scenes. And for some people, that's like, they love that. That's not me. Like that's
Right.
never that. And so I do like, I have a gaming laptop and I play some stuff on it, but, um, I'm a console gamer because it's ease of access, ease of use. And so like you've got that going for it. I think though the other side of it is, and this is what I would say is, I think that actually Sony has probably done the math on this. And I've seen just some things out there where there was one guy saying like, talking about there are a lot of people who've been canceling their PlayStation Plus subscriptions, myself included, actually. Like instead of auto renewing in December, like I turned mine off. And I
Yeah.
might go back to like the PS Plus basic or whatever, because I need that to play online stuff. But anyways, and that is an area where they are going to see some damage. Like that is going to apply pressure. But he said like, he's like, listen, he's like, we don't know the numbers, but he's like, let's just assume there's 500,000 of you. He's like, do you realize that out of all of those users, like the 50 million users or whatever that they have on this service, that's like 1%. That's less than 1%.
Yeah.
And it's kind of one of those things where, and this is kind of what has me thinking that is like, again, that very like vocal minority. I don't know. I mean, who, like, that's the thing is like right now, there's a lot of things we don't know. Like you brought up the fact that like Sony hasn't really talked about this outside of like, hey, we're going to cease production of this plant starting January 2028. And it doesn't mean that they won't backtrack, or I think it's highly unlikely.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that they won't. Maybe there will be enough pressure, because like what I'm seeing is that there are some countries, governments who are getting involved in this and sort of, talking about this. I honestly think what this will force though is that digital rights, consumer rights on the digital front will have to become more defined. Like,
Right. We can't
I think
call
that's,
a purchase a purchase anymore. We'll have to say you have a limited license to something. When you'll click the limited license button, not the purchase button, because Sony doesn't necessarily sell you something that they own. They sell you a license to something that they can revoke to some extent,
well,
right?
they don't want, I think that's the thing too, is like people don't seem to understand. Like, I know that there was like the 500 movies or television
Right.
shows or whatever. And it's kind of like, I, I mean, I don't like, what I think would be really interesting is to see how many people that actually affected. Um,
I
you know what
mean,
I'm
I
saying?
guess I get it. I get that because I mean, it was in the UK, but I mean, it was Studio Canal, and so you're talking Terminator 2. And I did hear one person say, and I don't know how this would have actually worked, is if you had an account to Studio Canal, maybe you still could watch it. And I was like, how would that work if you bought it through the
Well,
Sony like store? How is Sony Canal or Studio Canal going to know that you
movies,
bought it
like
like that?
movies and digital
Mm.
streaming and digital purchases have sort of, there are a few like universal options. So like they have done a much better job of that in some ways on that storefront. Like there are some services that like, hey, you buy it here and you have access to it here, 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 and here, and here, you know,
Right.
but that's not
Yeah.
everywhere.
Right. And so I agree with you. I think that they're probably just trying to save money, and they're saying, okay, these are our options. We continue to do a disc, and we only recover this amount of money per sale, or we go all digital, which, because we've sold a console that is all digital, essentially, we've started to get the consumer to think, well, that's the future, right? As
Well,
well.
there's
And we
so
just kind of ease them into this all digital future. And again, I bought a copy of Mercenaries Playground of Destruction on PS2 today. Like, I'm not the guy buying a PS5 disc, so maybe if I would have bought a PS5 and, buying these things currently, I don't really have any room to talk. I just think that things that are going to be lost by losing physical media for like the next generation and generations to come is kind of a big deal, unless, like you said, they get the digital right stuff to really be consumer, like good for the consumer. I just don't see that being, as a company, again, like you, to your point earlier, their goal is to save money. It's not to help you out and make sure you have access to this stuff in the future.
Yeah, but there's
To
also like a
some
certain
extent,
line where you don't want to sort of like, I think one of the big questions here with all of this though has been like, so there's also the data breaches. Like Last Stand Media's Colin Moriarty lost his PlayStation account for a couple of days. So it's like
right,
there are like legitimate concerns even outside of like, it's like they're like the profile security, my library
right,
security. Like
absolutely.
it's it's one of those things where like there are multiple vectors where I'm like, actually Sony, like I'm not concerned that you're trying to like you're sort of moving ahead with this, because like anecdotally, so there are a couple things here like too, and I was thinking about this. Matthew Ball, he's now the chief strategy officer over at Xbox. But a couple of years ago, he did a presentation where he actually demonstrated that over 50% of the revenue generated in video games comes from like 10 games, like Roblox, Fortnite, Minecraft. Like all these are pretty much strictly digital. They're like they are generating massive amounts of revenue. It's like 10
And
games
I
make.
and I agree with you, and I think that parents out there should be ashamed of themselves for not giving their kids proper video games. Okay, continue.
Well, yes, it is kind of disgusting and gross, but so I think that the digital market just, yeah, I do think it is sort of inevitable, but all of that sort of going is like, I was, oh man, now I got sidetracked. Now I got
I
thinking about,
interrupt you. I'm sorry.
no, it's all right. It's okay. But I just do think like it's one of those things where, man, now,
Well, you were talking about how 50% of the gaming market is essentially 10 games. And so,
yeah, the revenue
yeah,
generated by like those 10 games basically makes up the bulk of the market. I think it's
right.
something like 60 or 70%. It's ridiculous amount of the revenue generated comes from basically 10 games. And that's why, I mean, that's even why Sony was really pushing as hard as they were into like the games as a service, you know, model, because it's like if you can get one of those to hit, like you're
You're
good. And it
set
doesn't
for
even
a
have to be the size
decade.
of Fortnite.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
no,
I
I,
mean,
I I agree. I mean, I think that
oh man,
that's a kind of a shame as far as gaming, and that's where it's like, stage of grief I was talking about is just realizing like I'm just not a typical gamer. I'm just not that's not me, and that's okay. I mean, I don't have to play these things, and I think that's kind of crazy to think about that 60 to 70 that doesn't seem sustainable. And so that's why I
I
would
don't
say
think it
like
is.
I mean, I think that's going to crumble, and then you're going to have 1983 all over again,
I
where they're
don't know
just
that it
not going to
will
get any return
be
of
as bad
investment.
as, yeah, I don't know that it'll be as bad. I do think like if some things aren't addressed, that yeah, we could sort of the bubble could pop. But I also look at a lot of this as right sizing of the industry. I think like COVID times came, there was a massive explosion. They were hiring a bunch of people. They were borrowing a bunch of money. Like it was grow, 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 grow. And none of it was done very smart. I mean, the only Nintendo's the only company that didn't sort of grow explosively. They also haven't had to lay off like, 3,200 people
Right.
or even 3 or 400 people.
They
Like
gave their people a raise, and I mean, I'm not going to say that Nintendo made COVID, but like they had Animal Crossing ready for it. So
it's
just a
weird.
conspiracy theory, right?
Like
No.
let's put on the tinfoil hats here. Yeah, Nintendo. It didn't come from China. It came from Japan. Uh, Nintendo was ready for that. But I just I don't think there's any like really fun answers here. I think that like people don't want this. People don't like this. And again, I'm not a fan of this. Like I actually like kind of what I really wanted to see happen was like that the stuff you really love that is really important, really special. Like one of my prized possessions is a physical collector's edition of Shadow of the Colossus remake by Blue Point.
Yeah.
I I love that game. And that is such like a cool like physical thing. And actually I think
Yeah.
there's something important to physicality. Like I actually I'm kind of like sad because I do feel that the digital sort of only model actually makes it a lot easier to just not engage with these things on a transcendent level. It makes it
Hmm.
easier to just sort of be mere consumers. It makes it easier to just sort of treat it as something to be sort of used up and then thrown away when you're done. Um,
Right. I
and
think one thing that, as far as like the ROM fatigue, that's what I'm a little bit worried about when you have like an eShop, or not an eShop, but a PlayStation Store, the 9,000 games on it. I'd heard somebody say this, and I thought it was a good point. Physical media is a curation process,
yeah,
meaning if somebody made a physical copy of this game, it must be something that is above others, as far as quality, as far as gameplay, whatever. I mean, I like to pick up, to your point earlier, I like to pick up indie games, but I usually don't pick them up on launch. I pick up the ones that are kind of um, a step above a double
hmm
A kind of indie game. So, like this year, I picked up Ball Pit and UFO
mm,
50, and like those games, getting a physical release is like, okay, they're better than, the $2 eShop game that might be, right next to it on on the store. And so having a store of 9,000 games versus going to the store and seeing 50
yeah,
games, it kind of, I think is a cool way that, you know, since the beginning of games, or since, we there was only physical at one point, but when we had digital games, when they would release physically, it had a little something special to it. It said, hey, I'm on a shelf, I'm good enough to be here. And so, it's kind of a way that it's curated. I mean, we have ways of, we listen to podcasts, we get on um Metacritic, we look at different scores, and we can figure out games that we like, or people that suggest games that are good and we should try. But I think the physical piece of it is another way to say, hey, this is something special, or could be.
no, yeah, like like I said, my pie in the sky sort of like my hope is that like we will come back around to that. Um, but I don't know. Like I said, I think one of the things though too is just like I don't want to sound like a Debbie Downer, but
Well, let's
I
talk
think
about the solutions. What can we do, Nate? I heard a great podcast. If you haven't listened to it and you love retro, like I love retro, you should listen to the DF Retro Super Show with John Linneman and crew. I think it's a super, like, these guys are super smart, and if you like retro stuff. But they had a guy on from Evercade. So Evercade is a small handheld. So they have like
mm,
consoles that have like built-in games. Let's say, a Capcom handheld would have, like, I don't know, 20 Capcom arcade games built in, but then it accepts cartridges. So again, these are older games, so they're not for everybody, but you can buy physical copies of, physical cartridges that, like, that would have anywhere from like a single indie game to maybe like 4 or 5 arcade games by Capcom, SNK, you know, whoever, right? Data East, I think but they have made, I think, or have released, let me think, about 900 games on cartridges.
mm,
So I think that market is something that says, when physical goes away with the big, I think two, I think Nintendo will hold on, because I think the Switch is going to have the legs of like the PS2. I think the Switch, the original OG Switch, with the backwards compatibility, I could see it getting indie releases and small releases for quite a while beyond
Mm-hmm.
what, so we're going to have a lot more years, I think, of OG Switch. And then, so I'm pretty much, that's what I'm buying. But people like the Evercade group, like the SNK, AES Plus. So have you seen that? Um,
No, no.
so SNK is re-releasing the Neo Geo, like legit Neo Geo and legit cartridges. Now they're $100 a cartridge, but those cartridges can be thousands of dollars. And so they're
Mm.
re-releasing actual cartridges for the Neo Geo this year in November, I believe it is.
Yeah, that's
So
pretty
like
cool, man.
so like again, I would rather buy, and I have bought like collections of games than for like $40 versus spending $100 on a copy of Neo Turf Masters, which is a great game, but like
But is it worth $100?
not when you can buy it on Switch for a lot less physically as well. But anyways,
Yeah.
so there are those, like you said, boutique things, and as long as I think Sony will license making of discs, or making of even like, you could see more indie releases on PS4 maybe. If I don't know if there's a different, or how they would license PS4 versus PS5, you could press those, they would still
Mm.
work on PS5 for a long time, as far as like because to your point earlier, do we really need a PS5 or a PS6? I don't. I bought a PS4 Pro a couple years ago, and like I played occasionally, but like that to me is like, I mean, I that's good enough for right now. Uh,
Yeah. I do wonder, because it's one of those things where it's like I'm interested. The thing that I'm really interested in, and again, it's like, again, Sony hasn't said anything, but the long sort of standing, the long held rumor is going to be there's going to be a box for under your TV. There's going to be a handheld. And for
yeah.
me, like the handheld form has become that's
Oh,
my de
it's
facto.
king. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
like my Portal gets a ton of use. Byron commandeers the big TB. And like if anybody's using it while he's awake, um, we get
Yeah.
tears and pouting, and I love my son very much, but it's like a lot of times we're just like, just turn the TV off.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
um, but
Handhelds are great. I really think that's uh like that is, and that's, I think that would be, it'd be nice if the PS6, hey, is the PS6 only a handheld? That's why we can't have a disc system. Disc. I
well,
doubt it, but
I doubt it too. I think, like I said, there's the handheld version, and then there's rumors that the handheld might be able to be dockable, a la Switch. But
hmm
then I think like the sort of the long held rumor is that there's going to be a more powerful, just like dedicated box for under the machine, under the TV, and then there's going to be the handheld, which will play things it'll play PS6 level games, but it'll be like kind of like comparable to PS5 Pro.
does
I
it
mean,
stream, or will it? I mean, I know
no, it's
you
a
probably,
dedicated hand.
is
It's supposed to be a
so it's
dedicated handheld.
native. Okay, so it
Yeah.
natively plays them. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
And I think like that's the thing is, so like there is a side. I think there are lots of outlets that, and it's like, yeah, Nintendo moving forward, if you are really sort of dedicated to sort of preserving like the physical market, I think moving over, because like this is the thing is like losing those sales will apply pressure. Like if there is a big enough like sort of market thing. I think the other thing though too, like, so there is that. It's like, hey, put your money where your mouth is, because like there's always like, this is kind of like one of the other things for me is that there's always these groups that say, oh, like one of my favorite examples is on Steam. There was a group, and it was like one of the Call of Duties, and they're like, we're not buying this. And there was like hundreds of people in this group. and we're not buying the next Call of Duty. Day one of that next Call of Duty drop, almost everybody on that list, like 95% of the people on that list were playing it.
Right.
And so I think like online's a lot of times like it's very easy to manufacture outrage, but when push comes to shove, we'll sort of, so it's like, hey, stick to your, like, if like stick to your guns, put your money where your
Right.
mouth is.
Right.
Like if you're saying like, hey, like we're really not going to stand for this, then do it and like take your business elsewhere, because that like you have to vote with your wallet in this. I think the other thing though too is like, and again, I don't see Sony backing off from this. So I think the other side is like, and I'm not big on government interference, like, but I do think like we need to start lobbying for better, you know, better rights for digital
Right.
marketplaces, like better consumer rights for digital marketplaces. I think that you know, I don't know how like realistic it is. Like, you know, sometimes I read about these like the don't let games die kind of
Yeah.
movements and all that stuff. And I don't know how realistic some of their expectations are. Because here's the thing is like I don't think every game's worth preserving. Um, you know,
No,
and
probably not.
this is something that's a unique problem to video games that isn't sort of doesn't exist within sort of other mediums like films. Like you have multiple vectors, like you have streaming services, you have physical Blu-rays and all that stuff. Like, and so that's like comparable. Like music, again, it's sort of comparable, but like those are much more established mediums.
Mm-hmm.
And like, you know, even with music, you have vinyl making a resurgence. So there's like lots of options for purchasing and owning and etc. Books, it's like, yeah, you have ebooks, but like the physical book, like it's a physical object and you own it and it doesn't change. And that's like one of the things is that video games essentially, whether they're embedded on hardware and it's like the hard, like two pieces of hardware interacting, like the old NES carts and stuff like that, it's
Mm-hmm.
just zeros and ones. It's just code. And so I think that kind of does make that does muddy the waters a little bit when it comes to this stuff. Um, but like I said, I do, all that being said, right? So these are like a bunch of different thoughts here, but all that being said, like I think the other side of that is like that we do need to just say like, hey, if you're going to push into digital and like this really is just the future of the industry, okay, like if we want to play video games, we understand that we have to kind of play ball on your terms.
Mm-hmm.
But they're also, we need better protections. Like we need to know that like our accounts can't be easily compromised. We need to know that like if we purchase something, there's a reasonable expectation, you know, so whether it's like guaranteed for like 50 years, you know, or something like that, like
Right.
something
Yeah.
where it a little bit more than just like the kind of, because I think that's the biggest problem is that it's not really that people won't do this, but I think sort of the uncertainty and again the sort of there's no protection at all kind of
Right.
thing, because like because it's all dependent on code. Okay, like the one of the primary advantages of the physical versus digital thing is it like essentially it's like you're like does it play.com,
Mm-hmm.
right? If the game's on that disc and the internet goes down, you know, you can, you know, put the disc in. Now a lot of times it has like, you know, you don't need to be online for everything, but
Right.
yeah, you have that disc and you can just put the disc in the machine and you can play the game and
Mm-hmm.
you know, Bob's your uncle kind of thing.
Right.
Um, so it's, yeah, it's just one of those things where I think there's a lot of things to make it a truly satisfactory option. I think that there's going to be a lot of work on PlayStation, and I think Xbox is probably going to follow suit, honestly.
Yeah.
Um, but I think there's going to be like that's if Xbox even continues to be a thing, you know.
Yeah. They
Um,
they apparently are going to be rolling out their disc to digital. I think to the rumor is to their kind of core group of people that test things out.
yeah,
Because
they're
I
Xbox
think,
insiders.
yeah,
Yeah,
since they have, I guess because of how they made those discs, they have a individual key on each disc, and so that allows them to like essentially say, yeah, you have this game, and so I can give you a license to that game digitally because
Mhm.
you have this key. And if they did that in a way where I put my disc in and it said, hey, you have, I don't know, whatever game. And then if I were to sell that game and then Tony down the street takes it and then puts it in his system and it says, okay, this used to belong to, Turkey, but now it belongs to Tommy. So I'll just take that license now that I see you have it. Well, then you can have it. And so it's truly not, I mean, you're not playing it from the disc, but it's a way in which you're still kind of um
Well,
you
kind of what you're
have
talking
that
about too, though,
object.
is like even sort of in the digital market, it's like I know a lot of people get really like there's a lot of like blockchain fatigue,
Right.
but like this is actually one of the things that the blockchain could be leveraged for and be useful because like blockchain is just a really in-depth sort of like data management tool. Like it just
Right.
keeps track of like a lot of things. And so like you could potentially like you could actually start owning, I'm going to throw up
Mhm.
air quotes, but like
Right.
you know digital copies of games, and if you sold them or you could trade them, you could whatever, and that information would be logged in the blockchain.
Right.
And so it's like there are options for some
Right.
of this stuff to move forward in interesting, not totally sucky ways.
Right.
Like,
Yeah. Now you're gonna
but
go. It's gonna be weird going to a video game convention where you're just standing around at like empty tables and they're like talking about your blockchain. No, I'm just joking. But like the that stuff, and I know that's going to a store and picking
listen, we're
out a
not going to go
game.
to video game. You and I aren't going to video game cons anyways because those people
I,
don't bathe and they don't use deodorant.
uh,
Like,
well,
and we're dads and we're reasonable
yeah,
human beings. Like,
yeah.
it's was
So
that too mean? Was that too mean?
hey, I've been to a video game convention, but it's fine. It's fine. But I
It's
agree with you. There are ways in which I think that they can um, they can take that digital ownership to the next level, and like you said, give you the ability to sell, give you the ability to know that you have kind of, I say, rights to something. But and granted, we've come a long way, but you have like folks like Sega that lost they people lose codes to game. I can't think of the one, the Panzer Dragoon Saga, or like that game on the Saturn is like $600-700, whatever it is, but they don't have the code to it, so they're like, you can't, they don't have it. So like, are these people that I just don't trust them to, and I'm not saying that the games that I have, I'm like or I'm what I want to say, I'm not archiving them. It's not for digital, it's not for preservation, but it just gives me access to them,
mm-hmm.
really. And so
Well,
there's
I think
probably
there's
smarter people than me that could figure out a way to get the digital to that point. And
and this
I'm
is
just old.
I do think this is the other side of it, though, is that like the whole like digital economy, digital frontier, like all of this stuff is fairly recent. And so, 10, 15 years ago when PS3 sort of launched their indie store and Xbox was doing like the live arcade and all that, like the 360 on, like
Right.
all of that stuff, like very different times. Like
Mm-hmm.
now we are much more aggressively sort of like the digital libraries, digital storefronts are prolific. And I do think there is sort of more of an understanding, like versus like those early days, because like even Nintendo, I can't remember what game it was, but like one of their games, like it came like they did something on like the virtual store or they released it and they were like, people were like looking at some of the backdoor data and they're like,
Just a
this isn't
ROM.
actually
Yeah.
like the original code. This is a
Right.
ROM that you guys
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
basically you guys basically downloaded a ROM of your own game
Right.
And so there's like some of that earlier stuff. Well, it's just like, it's kind of like, the Wild West is the Wild West for a reason,
Right.
right? But yeah, I mean, like I said,
And you're right. You're right. You're right. I think that the and maybe I'm not trusting enough. I'm going to say something good about game key cards, Nate. You're talking about voting with your wallet. I said that I would never buy a game key card, and I probably won't. But there's a chance. I do think it's better than a code in a box. One thing I thought was interesting is that I heard, and it was a Good Vibes Gaming, GVG, I believe it is. They had mentioned that one of the games that I was actually very interested in getting, but it was a game key card. I'm not going to get it. Is the that Elliot game?
The Adventures of Elliot.
Yeah, Adventures of Elliot. Square Enix has just not put stuff on physical cartridges, but that game was not live on the eShop, and they put in that game. They got a game key card, put it in, and it downloaded the data. Meaning, okay, so is it possible that something that if it's like taken off the eShop, if it's on their server still, it will still download with a game key card? This is something where it wasn't available to purchase, but they were actually able to get the data. So those kind of things that tell me like, okay, you can still supposedly, yes, they're going to close down a lot of these shops. Nintendo closed down the Wii and all those things.
In the 3DS shop.
And the 3DS, you can still download things from that shop if you
that you previously purchased. Yeah.
Right. So like a game key card, in theory, I mean, that thing might be good for another 40 years. Like, I don't know what when that shop goes down, or not even the shop, but like we're, 10 shops from now, is that data easy enough to store and have people keep downloading it? Maybe that's, what they have to do eventually. But like, to your point, having other than just as long as reasonably possible, or whatever, like vague wording that they'll use to just say, hey, you'll have access to this for a while. I don't know. I don't want to trust in that. So
here's the thing is like any sort of like long-term license is going to sort of have to include some sort of language about, because like the reality is like people are like, what if Sony goes away? And it's like, and then I lose my access to all these things. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's a big what if. But, and I'm kind of like, maybe this is kind of like, maybe this is a little too grim. I'm kind of like, if Sony really goes away, I have a feeling that there are going to be like bigger things for us to be worried about.
It's true.
Like,
it's true.
I'm not like, I think that's kind of like the thing that I just keep coming back to for me personally is like, I love video games. Right. And this is one of my primary means of recreation. I mean, we podcast about it, it's like, I like talking about them, but I think like it is one of those things where just as I've gotten older too, like if they were to go away, like one, I have a ton of stuff on my backlog. So, and I've got a ton of stuff downloaded to my PlayStation 5 now. And I've got a bunch of discs for PS4 and PS5. So it's like, I'm good for a while. And if I can have access to that library for the next 5-10 years, I probably have more than enough stuff between all of my, like between my Switch 2 and my PlayStation and PC and everything. Like I probably have enough, like I probably don't have to buy another game for next 5 or 10 years. I could probably just play through what I have. Right. And, honestly, I'm trying to be a lot more intentional about that. Like this whole year, I'm not really buying games. I mean, I have bought a couple, but like that's neither here nor there. But it's like one of them was a birthday present. 2 of them were birthday presents. I don't know. And one of them was like a co-op game to play with my buddies. But anyways, all that.
Get it while you still can, Nate. That's what I say.
While I still can.
That's right.
That's the thing is like, I guess what I've kind of just come to is like, I kind of hold video games pretty open-handedly, and if like they go away, I will be bummed, but like I'll be okay. And I think
Yeah.
that that's one of the biggest differences is that I see a lot like sometimes when I'm online, I see a lot of people who like I'm like if video games go away, I don't know what you're going to do with yourself. And
Yeah.
that's like that actually gives me a little bit of like like cause for concern. Like where I'm just like, "Oh boy." Like anyways, yeah, but I I like it's one of those things where it's like I don't think there are any easy solutions because like I think sort of in sort of wrapping up the conversation, it's like one, obviously we need to vote with our wallets. We need to put our money where our mouth is. And so, some of that means like doubling down, buying physical, you know, and sort of really sticking to our guns. I think the other side of that though too is that um, you know, I don't know, maybe not hold it so tight where
Absolutely.
it's like,
I agree with you. Like I think it's a fun hobby. It's nice to have this stuff.
mm-hmm,
My kids would tell you I have a couple things that I like to say, like, you know, if you're, like jumping into a pool, you always do a cannonball. I mean, I was a fat kid, still not very skinny, but I was trying to win the largest splash contest, and I did a cannonball several times, and then tried the jackknife, and it didn't work out. So always cannonball, never buy the thing in front. As far as like when you're purchasing something on a shelf, you always get something,
oh
you don't
dude,
want the one in the
you
front.
always you always grab at least the second
Yeah,
jug of milk
exactly.
behind, at
Yeah,
least.
yeah, yeah. Don't
Sometimes
want
you go
that.
back to the third or fourth.
Absolutely. And always buy physical media. So like, you teach your kids some things, and if they can't buy it in the future, that's fine. But I think it's all good. Like you said, gaming is a fun hobby. If
Mm-hmm.
it goes away, I have plenty of games. And it's you can always go back. You can play older games.
Mm-hmm.
There's I think something that Josh said on a podcast previously once, and I was thinking about what he said as far as, I don't condone the pirates, but one thing I've been able to do is, back up the stuff that I have. And, you can back up some of the stuff that you have, the cartridges, or the discs, and just play them on your computer. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you can buy the thing, and you're not, anyways, I won't get into all that, but like
Yeah.
there's ways to play the stuff that is legit, and you're not like, um stealing. So anyways, there's always be games. There's so many games out there. Like you said, I have
Mm-hmm.
plenty that would keep me um busy for a long time, and I'm just happy and content that that's great, and that's wonderful. And
Yeah.
if it does go away, I to be like I was saying, I don't really like modern gaming much anyway. So what
Mm-hmm.
really, how does it affect me? It doesn't, you know.
I I think as somebody who is like a little more sort of like on the cutting edge, like and this is just sort of again, like I know I've kind of been mounting a bit of a defense for this, but like, sort of putting my cards out on the table. This is actually like I'm pretty like the handheld, don't get me wrong, the handheld PS6 is incredibly appealing to me. But it's also like it's very much like Sony's got to prove the value proposition to me. Like they have to. Like I'm kind of like I'm not actively hostile to it, but it's like but I'm not sort of rabid day one like I got to have it either. Like I'm like,
Yeah.
I'd
What is
really
that
like
thing
this, I
going to
think.
cost?
Yeah. And so it's kind of like one of those things where I just like, yeah, it's the open hand, man, where it's like, I don't need these things. And I like having them. And it's like you were saying too, it's like I have a ton of I have my 3DS, I have a PS3, I have a PS4 that works. I have a Wii U. I have like and I've got games out the wazoo for all of this stuff. Now, whether that Wii U still works or not is a different
You
question.
better, okay, Nate, do you not have a timer on your phone every month to turn it on to make sure that that thing boots up? Are you
No.
not doing that? What are you doing, Nate? You need
I'm
to be turning that
I'm
on every
doing
month.
other things with my life, buddy. I mean, this is like why I rage at Nintendo, because they won't give me the HD remaster for Wind Waker.
Oh man.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
but I don't know, man. And it's just like one of those things where, yeah, like I think like I said, my biggest thing with all of it is like, listen, I'm just holding it with an open hand and saying like, listen, it's cool if like you give me something worth sort of like worth getting, but
Right.
if the value's not there for me, like I'm just not. I'm also like I'm content,
Yeah.
you know. So,
Yeah. I'll
but
pick up a PS5 when I find one at a garage sale in about
dude, I'll
20
tell you what,
years.
man, the reefer market for them is pretty decent.
Is it?
Like I mean, it's still probably, I don't know what like your price range is, but I've seen like I saw like a refurb not too long ago, because like I'm kind of like, it's one of those things like if my PS5 ever does like bite the dust, like I'm like, oh, what are my options?
Mhm.
And it's like I'm gonna want to get, I'll just pick up a refurb. But yeah, I was looking at one, I saw one for like 250, $300, which is like not awesome, but
Yeah.
compared to like the $700 to get one new, I'm just like,
Yeah.
well,
No,
yeah.
yeah, that's crazy. I think that's a pretty good price for something like that. And you know, if if in fact someday like my PS4 bites the dust, maybe I would look into something like that to keep being able to play those games. But I don't know. You know, PS4s relatively inexpensive. You know, on marketplace and stuff like that. Probably 150, probably with some games easily.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Pro it might be a little bit more than that, but maybe not. If it's in good shape.
So to get a certified refurb from Sony, it's 550.
Mm,
Um, but I just Googled this to sort of see.
yeah.
But I've seen some other ones on here, like there's a barely used PS5 for 375 on eBay. There are options, so
Yeah. Yeah.
that are
It's there are a lot of
yeah,
them out
dude.
there. How many PS5s are there out there? What's the install
It's
base?
not insubstantial. PS5. I'll just I mean it's probably estimated. It's estimated, but so as of March 31st, 2026, Sony Interactive Entertainment reported that over 93 million PlayStation 5 units have been sold worldwide.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
That's that's nothing to sneeze at. That's a lot of units.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I don't know, man. With GTA, I mean, we didn't even talk about GTA 6 or anything like, but that's fine. But I think like GTA 6 is gonna like sell probably a few million units for Sony and Xbox by itself. Um, so we'll see.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, man. I mean, it's not all gloom and doom. There's a lot of like I think like too, one of the things, and this is like I want to end on a positive note, a really positive note, is like you and I both were on Mark's. We both did little segments for Mark
Mm-hmm.
Erickson over at Quick Play, and I think the general sentiment was like, yeah, we're not thrilled about where the industry is, but the reality is like, dude, there are so many great games, like more games than ever. As a
Mm-hmm.
general rule, they're better games than ever, and it's just like that's really cool to me,
Yeah.
and I think that's kind of like the thing that I'm hopeful for is like I look at Capcom and sort of how they've found sort of their own path. Like, and honestly, I look at Capcom and I'm like looking at Square Enix, like you mentioned Square Enix. I'm like, dude, you guys need to go talk to them and figure your crap out. You know? Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I look at that. I look at the just like because I mean, you and I are both of an age where we remember like Capcom was not doing well for a number of years, and they
Mm-mm.
really turned things around over the last like 10, 15 years. And so I look at them and I love the output. I love a lot of like the triple I stuff. Like I think Supergiant makes great games. I think Yacht Club makes great games. I like both of them with, I think, Team Cherry, again,
Yeah.
like great indie studio. Like these guys are sort of like, so I think there's actually a lot of room to be hopeful. Um, and yeah, I think there's a lot of room to be hopeful in spite of all the like the crashing out and the chaos and everything
Yeah.
else. I think there's a lot of great games. I think that yeah, more games than ever, better games than ever. Like every year, every it seems like the last 5 years, every year has been like the best year for gaming, and in a lot of ways. So yeah, I just refuse to sort of like submit to the doom and gloom. Like I'm gonna let the doomsayers be doomsayers, and I'm gonna be like, nah, man, it's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I there's plenty of games to play. You know, if they stop making games right now, you know, trying to go back and look at other catalogs, other games, other systems I might not have had. You know, there's a lot out there, and
Mm-hmm.
again, it's you're right. It's you can be doom and gloom, and I was sad. I thought that was really a bummer to see that Sony's doing that, but at the
Oh
same
yeah, dude, it
time,
sucks. It's like
it's
let's not pretend that it doesn't, right?
yeah.
But it's not all there is to the story.
Right. And I'm glad to see that, I know that when there if there is a market, and I think there will be for physical media, I think, like I think it was Nintendo just sold 400,000 copies of the new Rhythm Heaven Fever game in Japan. It
Mm.
was hard to find just physical copies of that game, plus like the new Goemon game that is like the collection. I was hearing that was hard to find in stores, you know and I think that maybe other cultures are maybe more, um like Japan seems to be more into physical media. A lot of games form like you're talking about Capcom. And this is another outlet for people that are looking for other or new physical games. I would encourage you to look at importing games. A game, couple games. Okami on the Switch, that never came out physically here, but you can get it in
Mm.
Japan. Ghost Trick, the DS game, I have a copy of that
Mm-hmm.
on Switch physically. You can't get it here. Um, I'm trying to think of Capcom Beat 'em Up bundle. I think E
Mm.
Rice actually texted me about or messaged me about that one. I have that physically as well. All of these can be picked up via PlayAsia. Usually, you can get free shipping if you spend over $100 sometimes. And then also places like Video Games Plus is a great place to import games. They'll get games in from those
Yeah.
regions as well.
Now,
And honest,
are those games region locked?
no. So any okay. So Switch is not region locked. So
Mm.
now not all Switch games from other regions include English. So that is good to try to you figure that out. There's a great YouTube guy. Well, he's okay. Let me put it like this: it's Physical Paradise. Now, a lot of times the games that are released in other countries are fan servicey, and I'm
Mm.
not all about that. But like, so some of his videos talk about those games, but he'll also talk about all the physical releases that are coming out on PS5 and Switch 2, the on cart Switch 2 games. That's another thing that I'm finding that's pretty encouraging is that a lot of the maybe I'll say some indies, like, so that new Mouse PI that's getting an on-cart physical release for Switch 2.
Mm-hmm.
The upcoming and certain publishers like Atari. So the new, I guess I say new, it's the Godzilla game that's coming out. That's a re-release of a GameCube game. That's a physical Switch 2 cart. Muramasa, the one that's being released with the new content next year on Switch 2, that's physical on cartridge. So Marvelous is big on that. So all the Marvelous games. So there's a lot of people that are embracing that, and I think that when you look, just do the research on if a game has English. But there's a lot of them. I mean, I think my first game I imported was was Katamari Damacy on Switch, because it came out when it first came out on Switch. It was a Blockbuster. How stupid am I? It was a GameStop exclusive, and once it sold out, it wasn't being released anymore. And I was like, man, I missed out on that. So I imported that, and it's just really, it's really great. Certain games to even have a Japanese cover. It's kind of fun because it's like, if there's a game that I'm going to have a Japanese cover of, it might be need to be Katamari Damacy. But so dude, I'm just saying that's another
the
way
Japanese covers are way cooler than the American box art.
Yes, and even great things like Blaster Master, the Zero trilogy. You can pick up that physically on those import places as well. Anyways, what I'm saying is there are other ways to get physical games of games that you like and that maybe aren't even coming out in the States that would play in English, and to look elsewhere maybe is another way to do it. So
yeah. I mean, I think that's that's the other thing. So I'll try to just rattle off, like you said, oh, daggone it.
Video Games Plus.
What was the
Play
other?
Asia.
Play Asia does some stuff.
You have PNP Games is another one in Canada. VGP, or Video Games Plus, is in Canada. PNP Games is also in Canada. Another, and those are relatively inexpensive. They're like $55 free shipping. So if you spend, and you have the currency, you get, it's not great, but man, on Play Asia, the currency for the yen, I mean, your dollars go a long way on Play Asia. So
yeah, the yen is not a strong currency,
right?
But yeah, dude, maybe we could gather up, like, maybe that's something where we could like gather up a bunch of links for that stuff and drop it in the Discord. Maybe even
absolutely.
Yeah, maybe Josh could get proactive and get links for a bunch of that stuff that we've talked about and put it in there as well.
And use code Turkey to get 5. No, you can't do that. So.
Dude, someday, use code Turkey to get 0% off your Patreon subscription.
That's right.
But anyways, dude, this is a little bit more than bite size, but I think that's okay. I think, I think that's good actually, man. Like, So
thank you for having me, Nate.
Yeah, no, dude, thanks for making the time, bud. One, it's been long overdue. We still got to get yours and gracious Josh's topics sort of lined up. We still have, but I mean, we got like half the year to figure that out.
Oh yeah.
So we got to get that stuff figured out. But yeah, man. And I think like I said, it was like one of those things where it's like, it is like, there's a lot of frustration. There's a lot of distress. There's a lot of just, I don't know. Despair feels like too strong a term, but yeah, there's a lot of mourning, a lot of grief. And, but yeah, I appreciate the conversation. I appreciate you, brother.
Yeah.
And, I think this is just a good place to sort of like call it a night. So, boys and girls, be good, do the things, and until next time, yeah. Well, yeah. Until next time, do good and be the things. Be good and do. Oh my goodness. Ugh,
Be
wow.
the things.
Be the things and do good. I mean, also, it works.
It does.
But all right, later, folks.